We're not opposing the motion.
Minister, 10 minutes.
I thank Cathaoirleach Deputy Harkin and her colleagues for tabling this motion, which the Government, as I've said, is not opposing. And I welcome the opportunity to speak to the House this morning on the very important matter of primary school funding and the many measures underway by Government to support primary schools. The issue of school funding is a very significant element of every school's operation, and I am acutely aware of the matters raised in the motion concerning funding and the appropriate staffing provided to schools, especially in the context of rising energy and cost of living expenses generally, increases in the number of students requiring special education and other interventions. I am equally conscious, however, of the many steps taken by Government in recent years to address these matters. I want to talk in particular today about how Government addresses financial issues for students by providing a range of measures, for example increasing capitation funding and expanding the provision of free school books as well as other initiatives. The motion before the House calls on Government to commit to aligning primary education funding with the OECD average and ensure the ancillary grant is sufficient to cover the cost of running a school. The Department of Education provides significant funding and other supports to recognised primary and post-primary schools in the free education scheme by way of per capita grants and other resources, as evidenced by successive Government investment and initiatives aimed at providing capacity to meet day-to-day running costs, bills and other expenses, and a commitment that a rise in the cost of living should never be a barrier to education. This is essential for us to deliver on our goal of enabling the provision of high-quality education and improving the learning experience to meet the needs of all children and young people in our schools. The OECD average, as referenced by the deputies, is taken from the annual OECD Education at a Glance report. This report uses gross domestic product as the base against which to compare investment in education across different OECD members. As the deputies will be aware, however, senior academics and other independent analysts have raised questions regarding the use of GDP as the most appropriate measure of the size of the Irish economy. To assist with this, the Department of Education published a paper on the matter in October of 2022 to assist users of these statistics to understand this issue. The paper is available on the www.gov.ie under OECD briefing notes. The briefing paper outlines how, using the alternative measure of gross national income, education expenditure in 2020 as a percentage of GNI stood at 5.8%. This compares favourably to the OECD average for education expenditure as a percentage of national income, which stood at 5.1% in 2020. The document also looks at Ireland's spend on education as a percentage of total government spending, and this also compares well internationally. The two main grants provided by the Department of Education to schools are the capitation grant to cater for day-to-day running costs such as heating, lighting, cleaning, insurance and general upkeep, and the ancillary grant to cater for the cost of employing ancillary staff services, for example, school secretaries and caretakers. In recent budgets, additional funding has been provided to schools to meet their increased running costs. This has been provided through substantial cost of living supports and permanent increases to the rates of capitation paid per pupil enrolled in schools. As part of the capitation package in Budget 24, €21 million was secured as a permanent increase in capitation funding to assist schools now and longer term with increased day-to-day running costs. This will support a permanent restoration of funding for all primary and post-primary schools from September of 24. The standard rate of capitation grant in primary schools for 24-25 school year is €200 per mainstream pupil, with effect from the 1st of September 24, and enhanced capitation rates are payable in respect of traveller pupils and pupils with special education needs. As part of the cost of living measures introduced in Budget 24, €60 million was provided in additional funding to support increased running costs for recognised primary and post-primary schools in the free education scheme, in particular in dealing with challenges they faced in the light of rising energy costs. This funding is in addition to the €90 million in Budget 23 as the cost of living measure. The Department has ensured in recent years that centrally negotiated rates were made available to schools for electricity and bulk heating fuels through frameworks sourced by the Office of Government Procurement. Central rates are fixed for gas and electricity for those availing of those arrangements, and these are open to all schools, and I strongly encourage schools to avail of these savings. There have been changes to the ancillary grant paid to schools this year, as referenced, to take account of the fact that certain schools no longer have certain pay costs to meet from that grant. This is because, following the acceptance by FORSA of the Workplace Relations Commission agreement in respect of salaries and various leave entitlements for grant-funded school secretaries, Those secretaries who accepted the terms of this agreement have been placed on a payroll operated by the Department of Education. Therefore, as schools will no longer be responsible for paying the salaries of these secretaries, it was necessary to revise the ancillary grant funding to take account of this charge, as schools will not be paying the school secretaries directly, but rather the department. In the 23-24 school year, schools have been paid the usual ancillary grant amount, minus the amount that schools previously paid to grant-funded secretaries prior to their acceptance of the new terms and conditions. Schools are in no way disadvantaged by this, as the grant is only reduced by the amount they previously paid to their school secretaries, and they no longer have to pay the school secretary. Schools have been advised that work and engagement is ongoing to identify a method of standardising the reduction to the ancillary grants for the longer term, where school secretaries are being paid via a payroll operated by the department. As part of Budget 23, over €50 million was allocated to provide free school books to primary school children and young people within the free education scheme from the start of the 23-24 school year. This scheme is a permanent measure. Over 563,000 children benefited from this programme in the first year of operation. And in the 23-24 school year, and 555,000 will benefit in the coming school year. The digital strategy for schools to 2027, published in 2022, is underpinned by an investment of €200 million over its lifetime, committed to under Ireland's National Development Plan. To date, under the digital strategy for schools, a total investment of €310 million has issued to all recognised primary and post-primary schools in ICT grant funding. Schools have autonomy and flexibility in how they invest this particular funding, and funding of €50 million secured as part of Ireland's National Recovery and Resilience Plan under the Next Generation EU Recovery and Resilience Facility has also issued to all recognised schools and free education schemes to support learners at risk of education disadvantage through the digital divide. A full budget allocation of €40 million, equal to that available in recent years, is available for the summer programme, and as in previous years, all of the funding is utilised to meet the needs of our most vulnerable children. A key barrier to the participation of schools following the reviews that have been carried out, a key barrier to the participation of schools was the availability of staff, particularly those staff already working in the schools. Therefore, this year for the summer programme, and to maximise the use of the summer programme budget, teachers and SNAs working on the school-based scheme were given their personal rate of pay, as distinct from a basic rate of pay as was previously the case. Consequently, the department has seen a much larger number of schools taking part across all school settings. In addition to the summer programme grant, there are also grants for assistive technology, Irish Sign Language tuition and typing tuition for students who are vision impaired. There have been significant increases in the number of teachers and SNAs allocated to schools over the last number of years. As regards special education alone, more than 40,000 dedicated professionals now work in this area. A review of the EPSN Act 2004 has been initiated in order to modernise and reflect the experiences of students, staff and families. And both commenced and uncommenced sections of the Act have been thoroughly considered to ensure a robust legislative foundation. The review process will culminate in a comprehensive report detailing all findings. Ensuring that every child's experience in school is positive and that they have qualified, engaged teachers available to support them in their learning is a key priority. Budget 24 reflects the Government's commitment to ongoing investment in teacher supply, and that includes the introduction of a professional Masters of Education incentive scheme for newly qualified teachers graduating in 24. Eligible teachers will receive an incentive payment of up to €2,000 to be paid in 25. Expansion of upskilling programmes free of charge has also been made available to school staff. These are just some of the measures that Government and my department have taken in investing in our primary schools. The numbers employed in our schools will reach the highest ever level in the current school year. Currently, there are over 42,900 teaching posts allocated across the primary school system. This represents an increase of over 5,000 teachers when compared with the 2019-2020 year when I took up office. In 3 of the recent budgets, as has been acknowledged, I prioritised reducing the pupil-teacher ratio in primary schools by 1 point each year to an historic low of 23:1. I have made access to an administrative principal for schools where the threshold whereby a teaching principal becomes administrative principal has been reduced from an enrolment of 176 to 169 pupils. All schools with 2 special classes now have administrative principal status regardless of their size. In Budget 24, the threshold for the appointment of an administrative deputy principal in special schools was removed, which means that 100 teaching deputy principals in these schools gained admin deputy principalship. In Budget 24, I also provided for an additional 500 posts of responsibility at primary level for the 24-25 school year. I secured cost of living payments in successive budgets to support schools with rising costs and simultaneously putting in place structures to help schools to manage the most significant costs. And the final issue I want to address is the issue of complex needs and in the new special education teacher model. Heretofore, complex needs was addressed by local health teams, and schools relied and department relied upon information that came from the local health teams. In some instances, that was forthcoming. It was lesser in others, and it was almost non-existent in others. It was necessary then to introduce a scheme where complex needs was fully recognised. To do that, we relied on school data in the new model, and where it's not available via school data, maximum weighting is given to the complex needs of a child. It is absolutely untrue to say complex needs is not recognised. It is given maximum weighting.
I now call on the independent